Welcome back. All right, it is that really busy day for the waiver wire, and so this is my fourth attempt getting through this. Just there's so many names on the board. There's so many teams on the board, and yeah, this is so we'll try it again. We'll start off with a trade. The Vancouver Canucks have made a trade. They acquire Eric Brannstrom, who they did put on waivers, and I'll talk about that in a moment. Going the other way, the Colorado Avalanche get Tucker Pullman. Pullman is not going to play this year. Pullman's been injured for years. He will be put on LTIR by the Avalanche. A 2025 fourth round draft pick picked up by Colorado in exchange for this. The Canucks did not want to use LTIR. For all of the complaints about LTIR, teams really don't want to have to use it unless they don't have much of a choice. Or, there's times where if a guy's going to be out for 10, 15 games, fine, you just throw him an LTIR. But in general, it's not something teams want to have to use. So the Canucks get out from using that on Pullman this year. And by placing Brannstrom on waivers with all the other names on waivers, I think there's a 50-50 chance he gets through. But if he doesn't and he gets claimed, I think the Canucks are probably okay with that too. Yes, they need some depth on the blue line. Brannstrom's absolutely that. I'd love to see him here in Abbotsford, but yeah, we'll see whether or not he clears. But for the Canucks, this means they don't need to use LTIR. They do have some cap space right now, and that cap space will accrue during the season. So I get why both teams do this. The Avs pick up a draft pick. There's no winner and loser in this trade. It's just I think it's a pretty good trade. Now, of all of the players on the waiver wire, there are some eyebrow raising ones, and Pierre Engvall being on waivers, definitely an eyebrow raiser. He has 6 years left on his contract. Six. He's 1 year into a 7 year contract. So, for those who don't like Lou Lamoriello, you can say, see, that contract was terrible. We knew that contract was terrible when it was signed. So, there you go. For people who like Lou Lamoriello, you can say, hey, he had the courage to admit that it wasn't working out, put him on waivers, send him down to Bridgeport, and see if he can get his game back. So we'll see how it works. Also, the Islanders put Skarek, Hogberg, Hutton, Bolduc, Karlstrom, Foodie, and Fashing on waivers. I'm kind of surprised by Fashing. I thought he was a useful player for them. I thought at the very least they'd hold on to him as an extra forward. But it looks like Lou's stuck with guys who he feels like had a really strong camp slash preseason, and so a lot of guys end up on the waiver wire as a result, including Fashing. So he's one I look at and think he could get claimed. Same with Brannstrom. Brannstrom absolutely could get claimed from Vancouver. Boston. So we'll start with the goalies. They've waived Bussy. They've waived Patera. With the signing of Swayman, I think it's Patera that ends up on waivers instead. I think Bussy was going to end up on waivers anyways. I don't know if these guys get through, but what's interesting is, so if the Vancouver Canucks put in a claim on Patera, and if they're the only team that puts in a claim on him, which I would think they probably would be, I'd be surprised if another team does. But if they're the only team to put in a claim on him, and I still think the Canucks will because they still need that depth in net, they can send him down to the AHL immediately. So this is why I mentioned when Patera went to Boston, I said, maybe Vancouver reclaims him on waivers, and there was a question asked about why the Canucks would do that, and I did go in and answer that. Because again, then they can send him right down to the AHL if no other team puts in a claim on the goaltender. The Bruins have also put Sweezy, VL, and Brown on waivers. I think they all clear. I'd be kind of surprised if they didn't. But last year, when Emerson was picked up by San Jose from the Rangers, it was a surprise. Of all of the, and I remember it was a board like this, I didn't think Emerson would get claimed. So there's the possibility we could see a surprise tomorrow, and a player being added to the opening night roster that wasn't expected. The Buffalo Sabres, surprise here in waiving Reimer. Yeah, James Reimer on waivers. They've decided not to carry three goaltenders. The expectation was they would carry three. Or that if they only carried two, maybe Levi is the odd man out because he doesn't need waivers. But they've waived Reimer, so they're going with UPL and Levi. I gotta say, I admire the courage on this one. Rusek and Clegg also on waivers for the Buffalo Sabres. Detroit raises some eyebrows with Holl on waivers, which was kind of expected anyways, but during the summer, I remember at one point people expected him to get bought out. Detroit did not buy out Justin Holl's contract, and so now he's on waivers. With that contract, he will go down. He'll end up in Grand Rapids and try to work his way back up to the NHL. The Red Wings also waived Lagesson, Rafferty, Snively, and Sheldon Dries, who was one of my favorites here in Abbey. So I think they probably all get through, but we shall see. The Ottawa Senators waive Yannick and Gaudette. Now, what's interesting is, of course, Yannick was traded from Utah to Ottawa for Sokolov, who went to Utah. Both Yannick and Sokolov now both ended up on waivers. So, yeah, they should get through. Gaudette will get through. Gaudette's cleared waivers a few times over the last couple of years. Hunter Shepard, waived by the Washington Capitals. Not a surprise. He's the number 3 goaltender in the organization. I like Hunter Shepard, but I get that the odds of him becoming a National Hockey League goaltender at this stage and at his age, it's probably not going to happen. But his loss is Hershey's gain, right? He's been very good for Hershey in back-to-back championships. Hershey's going to try to make it 3 in a row this year. We'll see if they can do it. New Jersey waived some players as well. White, Nolan Foote, DeSimone, and Bowers all on waivers. So there's the possibility DeSimone gets picked up because he's a good depth defenseman. There's a possibility that Nolan Foote gets picked up as well. But there's going to be some surprises, so we'll see there. The Toronto Maple Leafs, not really a surprise with who they've waived. They've waived Murray and Rafai. So while there was some discussion about what they do with Liljegren, maybe Liljegren's that number 7 defenseman. And I think both Rafai and Murray very likely to clear. It's too bad with Murray, too, because the preseason game I watched that he appeared in, he looked all right. He did. He looked all right. It's just preseason, but he looked all right. And you know, it's amazing how Matt Murray's career in 2016 and 2017, it looked like he was going to be a really good starting goaltender. And then it just, injuries took over. And now he's on waivers before opening night, and he's probably going to clear again. The Calgary Flames have waived Schwint, Cooley, and Pelche. There was an article yesterday on Pelche that I went through. Pelche wants to stay in the Flames organization, but it was pretty clear that he didn't really distinguish himself from others, and guys like Hanzek, for instance, outplayed him. I didn't even include him in the preseason, like the season preview for the Flames, in part because I was just looking at their depth chart, and I didn't feel like Pelche was likely to be in the plans for this season. I hope that he clears, goes to the Wranglers, has a good start, and gets called up. But yeah, he's one of those ones who may get claimed. There are definitely some younger players a team might take a shot at. Delgaizo's been waived by Nashville. It's another one who may clear, may get claimed. Delgaizo at points, I've seen him play in the NHL. He's looked all right, but again, the limited amount of games that he's played in the NHL doesn't necessarily tell you the whole story. The Rangers have waived Robertson, so it's not Nick, it's not Jason. Just throwing that out there. The Pittsburgh Penguins have waived Imama as well as Sebastian Aho, the defenseman Sebastian Aho. That's one of the ones I look at and think I could see a team like San Jose or Anaheim or somebody like that putting in a claim there. The Utah Hockey Club has waived Villalta because they're not carrying 3 goaltenders either. So Ingram and Vejmelka will be the goaltending tandem there as expected. The Vegas Golden Knights waive Ronbjerg. I like Ronbjerg. Lazinski and Aston Reese. And when I like a player, I totally get why they end up on waivers. A lot of guys that I like don't necessarily play that long in the NHL. I do respect bottom 6 players because they do have to work harder than the top 6 guys. And, there's times where they show that little glimpse and maybe there's a little bit more there. Aston Reese is the most likely of the 3, though, to maybe get picked up. We'll see. The Oilers have waived Lavoie. They waived Kajula. Josh Brown's on waivers, as well as Rodriguez, the goaltender. Josh Brown, I saw a lot of posts yesterday online, not on the channel, but online from Oiler fans asking, why isn't Josh Brown on waivers? He is on waivers now, so done. The Oilers getting their roster down to where they want it to be. Carolina's waived Ryan Suzuki, brother of Nick Smith. They also waive Josiah Slavin. So that's Suzuki, Smith, and Slavin on waivers. Josiah Slavin, of course, brother of Jacob Slavin. I think Slavin and Smith clear. Ryan Suzuki's an interesting one. Defensively, he's good. The offensive side, not necessarily as much. But again, it'll be interesting to see tomorrow who, if anybody, gets claimed. The Tampa Bay Lightning waive Ullinen. So Ullinen's on waivers. Santini and Concalves are waived as well, or Concalves. So yeah, Ullinen's a decent depth forward, but with so many players on waivers right now, if you're a general manager, do you see him as an upgrade over somebody you already have? Because remember, a team puts in a claim, well, then they're going to have to make room on their roster for this player, and they may have to waive somebody else as well. So it kind of messes things up. St. Louis waived Tucker as well as Schooneman. Tucker's got a little bit of toughness there. Maybe he gets picked up. Anderson Dolan waived by Winnipeg. The LA Kings waive Studnicka, Phoenix Copley, and Fagemo have all been waived. Copley, decent goaltender at the AHL level, has had some good runs at the NHL level as well. I would be very surprised if he's picked up by anybody. And Phillips waived by the Chicago Blackhawks. So, yeah, it's a busy waiver wire. There's a lot of names on the board. And so you guys can tell me who you think gets picked up and by whom. Which team picks up the player? And which ones are you most surprised to see on the board? I think Engvall might be the biggest surprise on the board. Not because I think his contract's great or that he's played up to it. Just I'm actually kind of surprised that year 2 of that contract, and he's on waivers to go down to the AHL. So let me know, do you respect Lou for making this move, or does this just prove that that contract was a bad idea? Let me know your thoughts. Hit like and subscribe in the event you've not done so already. Thank you guys so much for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.